before the signing of the Declaration of Independence, one of the original colonial homes in America. Let me tell you what has happened. An extraordinarily wonderful woman has just paid way too much for that property. And, and I feel partially guilty for that because I helped make it famous. And that's okay because I'm still helping her pay the bills by going whenever she wants me to go and doing tours and doing lectures and, helping keep it all afloat for her. Because she wants to share it with the world from her heart. She has exactly the same good intentions that I do for it. Why keep it sequestered away with barbed wire all around it and keep out signs all around it? What's the point of that? It's like when I was writing the books and my mother said, it's a very courageous thing you're doing, but you know what, sweetheart? This is not the kind of story that one should rightfully take to the grave. If we lived it, then it's incumbent upon us to share it, to tell other people, because there are other people out there that have had experiences that maybe keep it to themselves. Well, I know that's a fact because I have had hundreds of people come up to me at different events around the country and they say to me, I never told my parents, I never told my siblings, I grew up, I got married, I never told my spouse, I never told my children, but I'm going to tell you what happened to me when I was a child. And then they proceed to tell me the most phenomenal story, and the tears puddle in their eyes and drain down their faces, and their hands are shaking, and all of a sudden they have the courage to tell it because they read our story. And they figure if we could do it, they can do it too. And then I say the three most powerful words that exist in this language or any other, as powerful as I love you. I believe you. I believe you. And it releases years, sometimes decades, of a burden that they have carried. Because why? They felt different and they were afraid of being shunned and they were afraid of being told that they were liars and they were afraid of being outcast. They were afraid of being the misfits. Well, all of us are the misfits. How many of you have walked around most of your life feeling like some way, somehow you don't quite belong here until you found your tribe? We are the tribe. We are the tribe. We are the enlightened ones. We are the ones who dare to think outside the box. Well, I did not think that I would live long enough to see direct contact, conscious contact made between human beings and spirit. Until two youngsters that I've known since they were knee-high to grasshoppers, who are now in their mid-20s, Satori Hawes, Jason Hawes' daughter, and Cody Ray Despian. And about 3 years ago, when they were working on Jason's show, they met each other and they accidentally discovered that when they touch each other, spirit uses them as a conduit and comes through them and communicates directly with whomever is present. And I've seen it over and over and over again. And it's a rapping sound, a knocking sound that is made. And it's a very tedious process because it involves spelling out words using the alphabet and numbers. So a few weeks ago, I was up at the farmhouse and Cody and Satori were there. And we had about maybe 30, 40 people with us. It was a private fundraising event for Camp Braveheart, associated with the Ocean State Paracon, because every year we get together and we raise money for a worthy cause. And they help children that are traumatized or have suffered a great loss. And so that was what our mission was this year. And the second day of the Paracon, we did an event at the farm. And Jacqueline Nunez, who is the new owner, Hispanic lady, beautiful, wonderful, extraordinary woman, she's sitting on the Parsons bench in what used to be our dining room, and everybody's on the floor around, and Cody and Satori are up in front of the fireplace. And they've got their hands connected and their arms connected. And the sound, we cannot determine where the sound is coming from. It's just everywhere, omnipresent. And a spirit came through, and she identified herself through that process as Abigail Arnold. Well, it's the Richardson Arnold homestead. The Richardson family built it back at a time when women were not legally allowed to own property. Really glad that has changed. And so through marriage, it became the Arnold estate over the course of about the first century of its existence. And she came through, and a lot of other spirits were knocking. Everybody wanted to talk. Everybody wanted to come through. This was the way for them to do it. And somebody had gotten an EVP before I even arrived at the house. And somebody said, Andrea's on her way. And the response was, we know. I have no privacy. Trust me when I tell you, like zero. Always around. And so I get there, and Abigail comes through, and Satori says, can you give us your date of birth? So she gives us the month, the day, and the year. Can you give us your date of death? She gives us the month, the date, and the year. And all of a sudden, Jacqueline, who's sitting playing on her phone in the Parsons bench behind us, says, everybody look. There it is on Ancestry.com. Abigail Arnold is the only photograph that was ever taken of her in her life, and her date of birth and her date of death, and there she is. So in real time, in that moment, we were able to validate and verify that that was the spirit who was talking to us. And then the rest of them started, because everybody wanted to talk. And so they started pushing their way through, and somebody spelled out my name. And so Satori, who was very polite and very sweet, she said, well, do you have a message for Andrea? And what came through was, yes, we do. And so she started spelling out, she said, how many words? 4 knocks, 4 words. First word, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and when the knock comes, that's the letter you land on. What they spelled out is, we miss your family. We miss your family. Well, why is that? Because we treated them with respect. Because my mother told us once she realized the house was that active and that this was actually what we thought it was, she told all of her children, don't ever be unkind to them. This was their house first. We are the intruders. They don't understand why we are here. In order to live with them peacefully, we need to acknowledge them, and we need to be peaceful with them. And once we got to that point in consciousness as a family, all the upheaval stopped. It didn't mean that the activity stopped. The activity never stopped, right up till the day that we moved out. But we thought that it was over when we moved out, because we left the farm. Well, it fractured our family because my sister Nancy was so angry that my parents sold the farm to the abutting landowners, and she was their babysitter, that she went to them and she said, I'll stay on as the caretaker. I know you want to restore the house, and you need to have somebody here so that nobody breaks in, there's no issues. And they're like, oh, absolutely, stay. And so she did for a very long time. And our family, because of that, never lived together under the same roof again. Because by the time she joined us in Georgia, we had all dispersed and gone off and started our own families or moved to places because we were living up in the woods of Northwest Georgia. And so the only way to have a job or start a business was to move closer into Atlanta. So by the time Nancy came, we were all over the place. And that always made me sad, but it also seemed important that Nancy stayed because Nancy learned more about the house while we were there, or while she was there, and imparted that to us. As recently as 6 months ago, Cody and Satori were at the house. Now, the day we moved in, 4 of the 5 of us saw a full-body apparition standing in the corner of the dining room as Mr. Kenyon, who we had bought the farm from, was packing the last of his belongings and he was moving out. And there's this man standing in the corner. I saw him first, except that I didn't know he was a spirit, or what we call a ghost, because he looked like flesh and blood to me, to the extent that as I walked past him, I said, "Good morning, sir." And he looked right through me like I was the ghost and completely invisible, and was totally focused on what Mr. Kenyon was doing, because why? He knew Mr. Kenyon. And then my sister Christine walked in with her box out of the moving van and walked right past him, saw him, walked into the kitchen and said, "Mom, who's that man with Mr. Kenyon?" And she said, "I don't know what you're talking about. His son's on the way, but he's not here yet." So I guess we just assumed it was a neighbor that had stopped by, and then Cindy walked in and she said, "Who's that man that's with Mr. Kenyon, Mom? He's dressed funny." Well, yeah, because he was wearing handmade clothes from the 1800s. And then Nancy walked in and she leaned over to Cindy and she said, "Sin, did you see that man with Mr. Kenyon?" "I did, but he just disappeared." And that was our introduction to the paranormal. And about an hour later, after the van was unloaded and Mr. Kenyon and my father were standing in the dining room talking, 4 of the 5 of us were in there and we all saw him. He was standing 2-3 feet away from 2 full-grown men who didn't see him at all. And that's when we knew we were living in a really extraordinary place, and probably it wasn't a good idea to point him out or talk about this at that time. And then he just kind of faded away and he was gone. But Nancy felt that he deserved a name. So she called him Manny because she was 10 years old and not really that creative, and he was a man. So she named him Manny. Okay, that's how we knew him for years, until my mother started doing research on the house and she found out that Johnny Arnold had died in the house from drinking horse liniment, which was a really cheap way to get drunk back at a time when it was hard to get a hold of alcohol. And horse liniment, as most of you know, is like an alcohol-based product. And it basically ate a hole in his stomach and he bled out and he died in the house. And so we thought that it was him for decades. And then Cody and Satori go there and they start getting messages. And who comes through? Joseph Arnold comes through. And everybody they all read my books. They all knew the story inside and out. And they're all looking at each other saying, "Do you remember a Joseph in the trilogy?" And everybody's just looking at each other saying, "No, I don't." And somebody went to grab one of the books to, look in the index to see if there might be some reference. And then the knocking started again. And Satori said, whoa, wait a minute. And Joseph came through, and his next sentence was, "Nancy used to call me Manny." So 50 years later, we thought we knew who that spirit was, and he identified himself. We met him in 1971. It was 2022. And that's when we discovered who that spirit was. This house is a treasury of riches. We know a fraction of the history of the house, and the same is true of this magnificent house and countless other structures, because guess what? They didn't have Facebook, so we don't know what they had for breakfast every day. And we don't know, who hooked up the cart and went to town and got the grain for the horses. And, their lives remain a mystery to us for the most part. And that's why I always say, all these years, life and death remains a mystery. But that's okay, I don't think we're supposed to have the answers to everything. I don't think we're supposed to know everything. But it is the curiosity that drives us to search ever more for answers that we openly admit we may never have until we are no longer in this realm, but are with them. And we have asked questions of them that they have told us they can't answer. And Cody and Satori have single-handedly made obsolete EchoVox, Spirit Box, EVPs, etc., etc. What they're doing is absolutely extraordinary. Now, the next quantum leap is to see if others can duplicate what they do. So what we have to do is determine what the dynamics are at play. Cody and Satori love each other. So there's your common denominator right there. They love each other. And when they come together, it creates almost like a magical bubble around them. Cody died when he was 15 years old. Dead. He was brought back. They know him. He knows them. Satori is the most innocent, pure of heart woman child I have ever known. Now, if we can find someone who has those qualities, a female with those qualities, and a male with someone who has crossed and come back, wouldn't it be fascinating to see if we can duplicate what they're doing so that we can all know that we can have that common bond with spirit, and they will answer what they can. But what they can't, we need to be respectful and reverential and say, okay, you're not allowed to give us those answers for whatever reason. But it doesn't hurt to ask. And what is revealed, the revelations that are coming more and more and more in this field are enough to illuminate human consciousness, to enlighten and awaken the world to the depth and the breadth of our existence, because we do not live in a three-dimensional, five-sensory realm. We live in a multi-sensory, multi-dimensional universe. And therefore, there is no end to our exploration and discovery. And that is the jet fuel. That is what fires the human imagination, and that is what fires up the human intellect, and that is what drives us ever forward in a field with no end. And that is the beauty of what we do, and we do it together, and we believe each other, and we love each other powerfully, no matter how different we are from each other. We are like-minded in purpose. With single-minded purpose, we move forward. And I adore all of you, and I thank you for your commitment to the cause of enlightening all of humanity. Am I done? I have 5 more minutes, which means I actually have 3 more minutes, right? Right? I have 8 more minutes, but... Oh, okay, well, I don't know, because I was ignoring you. I didn't mean to, but I kind of get into the shit. I really, really enjoy what I'm doing here, so, come bite me, baby. Whatever it takes to get my attention. Okay.